about our lives, our physical lives, and I will be reading out of Ecclesiastes 11 and 12 from the Contemporary English Version. So I will begin with, be cheerful and enjoy life while you are young. Do what you want and find pleasure in what you see. But there's a warning that comes with that. It says, but don't forget that God will judge you for everything you do. Now I can remember God did not come into my life until I was 23. So up to 23, yes, I enjoyed life, did what I wanted, chased pleasures. But it was in time, God says, don't forget that God will judge you for everything you do. So from 23 on, we say to 40, maybe 50, I found myself wanting to do certain things, wanting to chase certain pleasures. But that always came back to me. But don't forget that judge you for everything you do. And that was good in the sense it prevented me from doing things that are not proper. And I listened to that. And then it continues in verse 10. Rid yourself of all worry and pain, because the wonderful moments of youth quickly disappear. How many of us sitting here understand that? Because all our injuries in our youth, when we were chasing these pleasures, and I want to do this and I want to do that, those injuries come back later, and they bring pain. And I have them, just like anybody else that's close to my age. But continuing in chapter 12, it says, keep your Creator in mind while you are young. In years to come, you will be burdened down with troubles and say, I don't enjoy life anymore. Have you seen this? I have. With my mom, in the last 3 or 4 years of her life, she was in a nursing home. And seeing the residents there, I can understand I don't enjoy life anymore because there is no life. It's an existence that has no meaning. And that's something I want you to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Because continuing, it says, someday the light of the sun and the moon and the stars will become dim to you. Eye problems. Rain clouds will remain over your head. How many of you know who Eeyore is from Winnie the Pooh? Rain clouds. What's over Eeyore? And basically what it is, it's a negative attitude. You don't see the bright side of things. You see the dark side. And it is troublesome. And then continuing, it says, your body will grow feeble. Your teeth will decay. Your eyesight will fail. Those are true things. I've got partials. I've got crowns. My body is growing feeble. It doesn't have the strength like it had in its youth. And each day, it gets a little bit more feeble. It's supposed to. That's the way it just is. And then in verse 4 it says, the noisy grinding of grain will shut out by your deaf ears. But even the song of a bird will keep you awake. I had never thought about this because this is an experience of mine. When I'm in a room, I only have one good ear. My right one is deaf. If I'm in a noisy room, I cannot understand a word what anybody is saying. But we and my wife, at our home, we have a wind chime out by the front door. And if the wind is blowing and chiming, I can hear it. And it actually will keep me awake. So that has a lot of meaning to me. I understand this because I experienced this. It's part of my life. And then continuing in verse 5 says, you'll be afraid to climb up a hill or walk down a road. Heart attack. That's what comes to my mind. Like in St. Lucia going up that hill, I started thinking, you better pace yourself. Do it 1 foot at a time. We don't want to have a heart attack here. So excellent. Then your hair will turn as white as almond blossoms. Have you ever seen an almond bush or an almond tree? My wife and I have one in our yard. And it's more of a bush than a tree, but it will become a tree. When this thing goes to bloom, it is solid white. It's one of the most prettiest things you have ever seen, and it has a very gentle fragrance to it. But reading this, I understand what this is saying. You got white hair, I got white hair, there's a few others. But using that almond blossom, it just hits the mark. It says, you will feel lifeless and drag along like an old grasshopper. Remember Geritol? They'll speed you up a little bit, but I don't think you can buy that anymore. And then it says, we each go to our eternal home, which means death of a physical life. And the streets are filled with those who mourn. Take a minute and think. When you're young, what are you doing? You're partying and going to weddings and the receptions. That's what you see. But when your hair gets white, what happens? It changes to funerals. That's what that is talking about. And continuing, it says, the silver cord snaps, the golden bowl breaks, the water pitcher is smashed, and the pulley at the well is shattered. It just simply means you're wearing out. This body ages. It gets tired. It hurts. It's forgetful. But that's part of it. And following, it says, so our bodies return to the earth. And this is the translation that I like. I really like this. It says, and the life-giving breath returns to God. I like it. The life of breath is returning. Now, we understand what death is. We understand what occurs at death, where the world in general has a whole different perception. But this to me speaks it, the breath of life, that life-giving breath that returns to God, awaiting a resurrection. That's what we wait for. And then he says, nothing makes sense. I've seen it all. Nothing makes sense. There's two parts to this. If you don't have a life with God, if you don't have a knowledge of God and how physical life is, that's exactly how it appears to you. Nothing makes sense. Because, for instance, let's say you're born, you got a career, you got a family, you've raised kids, you've got this inheritance for them. And what do the beneficiaries do? They spend it for you. Nothing makes sense. I have seen it all. Nothing makes sense. I have an uncle. He was a man. He had a proper shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. This was a man, self-made, became a millionaire. What did his 2 sons do? They spent it. So I can understand him saying that very thing. What sense does it make? I've spent my life doing this. For what? And then it comes down to everything you were taught can be put into a few words. Respect and obey God. This is what life is all about. Is it not? We understand this. We know what it means to respect and obey God because it makes our life, the life that we have lived, the life that we sacrifice for. And it has a meaning. It has a promise. And you'll find that in 1 John 3:2, where it says, my dear friends, we are already God's children, though what we will be hasn't yet been seen. But we do know that when Christ returns, we will be like him, because we will see him as he truly is. Now, does that not bring some sort of understanding of our physical life? Does it not? We respect and we obey God. That is the promise to us. We are moving towards that first resurrection. Our life has meaning. It's not meaningless. It can only be meaningless for those who do not understand and those who reject God. So, brethren, when someone kind of goes, what is the meaning of this? Why? Just remember who you are and your future.